Today I'm going to show you 3 tips as well as a really cool bonus tip of how I draw trees. So tip number 1 is lollipop trees. Now I know that sounds really simple, but this technique is quite simple and it's quite accessible for beginners. It's also a great way to begin to start looking at the shapes of trees. Now when you're urban sketching, sometimes you don't want to detract away from the details of the buildings by overly complicating the sort of foliage of a tree. So sometimes lollipop trees is a great way of keeping the foliage within that landscape quite a simple element, and it doesn't distract you. This technique has been used by architects for I don't know how long to simply add foliage and tree elements into a landscape. It's a very effective technique for all that it is quite simple. So tip number 2. Now this one is a sort of step up in some ways from the lollipop tree. This technique is the silhouette. So if you've got a reference drawing or you're sketching in nature and you're sitting there doing some urban sketching, you sort of squint your eyes and you look at the trees and you'll be able to see their silhouette. And once you start to sketch in their various silhouettes together, it's an opportunity to add a little bit more detail than your lollipop tree, but again you can express that relationship between different trees within the environment. The silhouette method is a step up in a way from the lollipop method, but it's also a step towards understanding a little bit more about the 3D elements of trees and how they sit within the landscape. So you've got 2 really simple techniques there. One is a slightly elevated version of the first, and we can go on to look at a 3rd technique, which again is a little bit of a sort of step up from that. Tip number 3. So I've called this one the 3D tree. So I'm going to show you a very simple 3D tree with some cross-hatching to denote shadows. Now, if you imagine the tree as a sort of sphere with the trunk coming through the middle and underneath there's a shadow, you can see in this drawing that I'm doing here, it's a very simplified version of that. Now you can show this shadow detail with watercolour paint, you can show it with line work. So for simplicity here, I'm just showing you the line work version. So finally, we have a great little bonus tip that I think you'll really like, and it's one of my favourites. But before we do that, I just want to thank you for taking time to view this on YouTube. And obviously my patrons, you can watch ad-free and watch slightly more extended content on my Patreon channel. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. Right, this bonus one is a corker, right? This is a cheat as well. It's just watercolour. But I'll show you how you can use just 2 layers of watercolour to not only show form, not only to show texture, but also show shadow value, which I think is the same as form when you think about it. So maybe 2 things. Anyway, it's great. Check this out. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm literally just very quickly doing a tree with just watercolour. You can see I'm just merging it all together on one sheet. It's very simple. And then I'm going to dry that off. So this is going to be a very quick, maybe 2 colours, like a blue and maybe a yellow and then some grey for the trunk or something. And I'm going to dry that off, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to put another layer over the top to show a bit more shadow and a little bit more texture. It can be quite loose, quite expressive. It's such a fun process. Once you start getting colour involved, there's a whole other level to your artwork. So that's a great way of doing trees as well if you're beginning. Have a play with it. I mean, all these techniques as a beginner, they're all about play. You can sit down, draw a very simple tree. It doesn't have to be the part of a whole scene. Forget about that. Just say, here's a tree, little sketch. Bang, some colour in it. Here's another tree over here. Let's put some shadow under there. Let's try some cross-hatching. Let's try watercolour inks. The great thing about trees, I can't stop talking. I'm going too fast, too much coffee. The great thing about trees is they're the perfect doodle. You don't even have to do like a forest, or like a valley or a stream with a bridge over. Just draw a tree. The other thing is there's loads of trees. Coniferous trees, deciduous trees. They all look slightly different. They've all got different vibes to them. They all grow at different distances apart. Anyway, I love trees. Just draw trees. That's all I'm saying. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks again for stopping by, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.